Every day, something dramatic happens in the Caribbean that affects our lives. We'll give you the details. We'll give you the facts on Caribbean Perspective with Eddie Frederick. Here's Eddie Frederick.
So glad you can join us. Bahamian Prime Minister Phillip Davis defends his government's policy on digital currency in spite of the crash of FTX. This story takes the lead in today's edition of Caribbean Perspective for Wednesday, 23rd November 2022. Details when we return.
The hurricane season is now upon us, so we as Caribbean people need to remember to think safety and be prepared. Avoid venturing outside during a storm or hurricane, especially if there are strong winds. Rooftops and other debris are often blown about and can cause great damage.
Welcome back. Bahamian Prime Minister Phillip Davis speaks to the media on the fallout since the collapse of the Bahamas-based FTX.
The twists and turns of FTX digital markets fallout, and tonight we can tell you no campaign funding and no digital wallets. At least that's how Prime Minister the Honourable Phillip Davis today responded to questions from the media following international reports about his government's involvement in the embattled company's operations here in the Bahamas. Based on those reports, that FTX trading chastised the government and provisional liquidators and bankruptcy documents filed in the United States. Prime Minister Davis holds firm he doesn't have a FTX digital wallet or portfolios, and he's not aware if any of his cabinet ministers do. Further, he replied no when asked if the government invested in FTX in any way. And as for FTX's intention to construct boutique hotels in the Bahamas,
I'm not aware of them making any promises about any boutique hotel. The only indication about anything near to that was they were going to build a campus for teaching and like a technical school to house their workers out on West Bay Street. I know they purchased the land. The land was cleared. Now where that is now, I don't know.
The Prime Minister also lamented the negative attention the Bahamas has garnered in light of FTX's implosion.
An unfair characterization. I'm not concerned about our reputation in that regard because most of what is being said is the posturing of persons who would wish to have the liquidation under their control. So once that is settled, you'll see that everything will just blow away. I have positioned the Bahamas to be the leading jurisdiction in the digital assets space. I'm intending to keep that position, and the only thing of concern is reputational consequences, and I'm dealing with that.
St. Lucia's Prime Minister Philip Davis has pledged his government's financial support for small businesses. Don Nicholas of the DBS News World reports.
Tuesday's sitting of the House of Assembly expects to see the passing of a resolution for a $10 million loan to provide financial assistance to small businesses. This comes at a time when micro-enterprises and potential entrepreneurs have been complaining of difficulties in accessing loans to either start or expand their businesses.
It's the first time that the government is giving a direct investment and injection in small businesses that will create jobs and create sustainable employment for small businesses, number one. Number two, the Minister of Equity told you, we are borrowing to reduce poverty, to improve equity, to give people another chance in life, putting people first.
Another agenda item is the appointment of a deputy speaker. The ruling party will request a 90-day period to facilitate an amendment to the Constitution to allow someone from outside of Parliament to fill the post.
That's a government that's transparent. No backdoor, like what happened the last time. Be transparent. We're going straight to the public and say, that's what we're doing.
Tuesday's sitting of the House of Assembly gets underway from 10 a.m. For the DBS News World, I am Don Nicholas.
In the meantime, Prime Minister Phillip Davis is warning young holders of unlicensed firearms that they can be slapped with a 25-year prison sentence. He was responding to questions on escalating crime in St. Lucia. Again, Don Nicholas brings us up to speed.
As part of ongoing efforts to combat crime, Prime Minister Phillip Davis announced that government will be providing 2 more vehicles to the Royal St. Lucia Police Force. He also disclosed that the organization is getting set to implement its operations plan for the Christmas season, a period which traditionally sees an increase in robberies, burglaries, and other crimes.
I think the police are doing a very good job. They have to continue. The police must not relax. They have to push with the resources that they have.
So far, St. Lucia has recorded 62 homicides for the year, with the vast majority occurring as a result of gun violence. This urged the Prime Minister to issue a warning to young holders of unlicensed firearms that the offense incurs a 25-year prison sentence.
So I'm begging young people, please avoid having firearms. It's not worth it.
So is there a need for St. Lucia to follow Jamaica's lead and declare a state of emergency? Prime Minister Phillip Davis did not appear to be too eager to go that way, but he referred to what he described as a pandemic of crime across the region, making it a priority at the next CARICOM Heads of Government meeting. For the DBS News World, I am Don Nicholas.
You're listening to Caribbean Perspective with Eddie Frederick.
Opposition Senator and spokesman on national security in Jamaica, Peter Bunting, dismissed criticisms of his effectiveness as National Security Minister. Bunting says the government is failing, noting crime is on the rise. He was speaking at the PNP conference in Central St. James on Sunday last.
Opposition Senator Peter Bunting, speaking at a PNP conference in Central St. James, addressed critics comparing his tenure as Security Minister to current Minister Dr. Horace Jang.
So last week now we heard the latest excuse as to why he has been an abject failure as Minister of National Security. The excuse he came up with now is that after 7 years, after this government being in office for 7 years, the reason why they've been an abject failure is because when I was minister, I didn't fund the police.
Bunting notes the nation's crime is on an upward trajectory under the current government.
Since I'm in St. James, since I'm in his parish, let us examine that. Well, first of all, this year, at the rate we're going, we'll have over 1,500 murders by the end of the year. 1,500 murders by the end of the year at the rate we're going. Over 1,500. What was the average during my time when I was supposedly defunding the police? 1,100 and something.
He empathized with police officers who have put their lives on the line without adequate resources. Meanwhile, former parliamentarian Ian Hales believes the current state of public emergency will negatively impact the youth.
From Freeport to Lucy to Negril to Sacramento, every jail in Western Jamaica because of the state of emergency from the poor young people. That is a fact. PNP not against fighting crime and dealing with terrorism on here. But we don't believe that all of the children across the country, the poor young people.
Javine McLean, CVM Live.
Following the recently held JLP conference on Sunday, some political commentators are warning members of the Jamaica Labour Party, the JLP, that the crowd is not sufficient evidence to predict the outcome of the pending local government elections.
Faithful party supporters gathered in thousands at the National Arena in Kingston on Sunday for the 79th annual conference. Political commentator and analyst Shalmon Scott says despite the crowd size, it is difficult to predict the success of the JLP in the upcoming local government elections.
We know from our experience since 1944 that both political parties have been able to mobilize massive crowds for these meetings. But they have also, at the end of the exercise, the contest, they have also suffered massive defeat despite the large crowds.
Meanwhile, political commentator Kevin O'Brien Chang says when compared to the PNP conference, there was a huge turnout of young supporters. However, he says while the Prime Minister would have worked hard, there is a huge crime monster that he's failed to address.
People say he's been weak on crime. Does he have the cojones to cut crime? That is the big question people are asking with Andrew Holmes. In fact, it's like a woman said, boy, it's a nice guy and I like him. But he's kind of weak, man. He's soft. So people are saying, is Andrew Holmes a soft? And he has to prove to the country that he has the wherewithal to take the tough measures we need to cut crime.
With the Christmas season fast approaching, opposition spokesperson on Labour and Social Security, Dr. Angela Brown-Burke says Holness failed to address plans for small business operators at the party's annual conference.
Many persons would have suffered during COVID. Many businesses are just kind of lifting their heads up above water, certainly in terms of those who earn by events, the pan chicken man, the parties and so on. What is to happen over the next couple of weeks? How do they fit?
Nicola Brown, CVM Live.
The Trinidad and Tobago Prison Service launched a week-long session focusing on restorative justice as it observes International Justice Week. The theme for 2022, Access to Restorative Justice. Here is more in this TV6 report.
Crime continues to be a concern among many as the figures do not seem to be slowing down. As for the year so far, we have already crossed the 530 murders. However, one may ask, how do people recover from crime? That question may be answered this week during the Trinidad and Tobago Prison Services week-long forum in commemoration of International Restorative Justice Week. During the opening session, the burning question asked is, are we there yet when it comes to restorative justice? But what exactly does it mean?
Restorative justice is an approach to justice that focuses on repairing the harm caused by crime while holding the offender responsible for his or her actions. By providing an opportunity for the parties directly affected by crime, the victims, offenders, and community to identify and address their needs in the aftermath of crime and seek a resolution that affords healing, reparation, and reintegration, and by extension prevents future harm.
The Acting Prisons Commissioner sought to further break down the significance of restorative justice. He says the prison system alone does not hold the whole mantle, as he believes the process includes several entities.
A lot of persons think that restorative justice has to do a lot with prison. That is incorrect. My percentage is maybe 10 or 15% to do with the prison, and the rest has to do with society. Not just lawmakers, teachers, policemen in the community, of course the judiciary and the courts.
He adds, restorative justice involves a concept and mindset in the way we approach issues. He also explains the term restorative approach.
The prison has gone beyond RJ, restorative justice, and we have gone the way of restorative approach without knowing we're doing that or without putting a handle onto that. Many, many years ago in the prison service, Pastor Parks and gentleman, Mr. Gordon Husbands, would have done so many out-of-the-box things to the prison that we would have branded just being charity or prisoner lovers. Just give them a little small space and not treat what they were doing with enough respect that is due.
Melissa Minard, TV6 News.
Hubbard's is once again innovating the way you shop with its new online store, providing 24-hour shopping convenience. You can shop now for appliances, hardware, houseware, building material, and more. Free delivery island-wide. Start shopping now at hubbardshardware.gd. Safe, convenient, reliable.
am Eddie Frederick, wishing you a restful weekend. This has been Caribbean Perspective, a whole new approach to highlighting developments in the Caribbean. In the meantime, please continue to log on to CaribbeanPerspective.com for more daily news and more.